This is a Vice Principal Academic interview with Mawia Ahmed.
Hello.
So we'll just get straight into it.
Sure.
How do you think hustings went?
I thought it was good. I thought I delivered my speech well. I thought all the candidates, likewise with all the other candidates, I thought we got a good range of questions, and I think all that the students would want to know was discussed in that husting. So I was glad with that.
Good. So one of the main things in your manifesto is
Yes.
how you've been programme rep
Yes.
on UGSSLC.
Cool.
Can you tell us, apart from UGSSLC, what else have you done around college? Apart from what you've already said, because it is mainly focused on UGSSLC Library Committee.
Well, that was a big part of my manifesto because of the academic nature of this role. I haven't had any on-union experience. I've not held an official position within the union, but I would consider myself an engaged student. I have attended the AGMs. I have tried to attend the Have Your Say sessions, and as much as a student can be engaged, I would think it's fair to say that I have been so.
Yeah. Do you think it would be work against you that you've not been on the union, or?
Well, I wouldn't say that it goes. It wouldn't be a disadvantage, because I feel I have a good idea with how the union works. I mean, one of the key ways that the union works is academic representation. I think in that sense I have had some good experience. There are other areas of political representation that I might not have been able to work in, but I feel I'm up to grips with how the union functions, and so I would be able to learn quite reasonably quick, I'd imagine.
Yeah. So in hustings you mentioned the things that you've done in UGSSLC, one of them being the seminar problems. Can you talk us through how, the problem, how you solved it, the things that have come from you bringing it up?
Absolutely. Well, for our core module, we had a seminar that took place in Reading Week, and for at least, or most of our course, Reading Week is a time in which they take to go back to their hometowns and so on, so there were only about 2 of us who could actually attend it. At first, I raised this with the module convener, but it didn't really go anywhere, and then I decided to raise it at the Student Staff Liaison Committee meeting, and the 3-hour seminar has now been rescheduled, and we're actually going to get the 10 hours that we are supposed to get. So those are scheduled in a few weeks' time.
Good. Is there any other academic difficulties that you've brought up and solved through your role? Or is it just the
it's also the one-to-one tutorials. We've had 3 essays this term, and although we were told we would be offered tutorials, we haven't as of yet. I've raised this a couple of times again with the module convener, but it didn't really get anywhere. We're now on our 3rd essay, which hasn't been marked yet, so we've been promised a tutorial on that, and hopefully there's also an end-of-year essay which will also be a shorter tutorial.
So you've mentioned you've built a productive relationship with senior staff members.
Yeah.
Can you name some of the staff members, say who they are, how you've built the relationship? Yeah,
of course. Ahmed would be one. In my manifesto I talk about the communication methods, like how to reach out to students in different ways, videos, SMS texting. He's given me a lot of advice on how that could work, some good pointers there. I also think I've a good relationship with Ashley Doolin in Student Services, particularly on the seminar and tutorial problem. He's the one who's reached out to the module convener and had those solved, and also I would say the Dean of Undergraduate Studies, who as well, just through attending these meetings, I've built a friendly relationship, I would say, with him too.
Okay. So, into your political representation part of your manifesto, you talk about setting up a Q&A with students and members of the governing body.
Yeah.
Which governors have you reached out to set that up? Have you spoken to anyone? How is that going to work?
I haven't reached out to any governors as of yet, but as a governor, as a VPA and therefore as a governor, I think as soon as I get, or hopefully get into that position of when I can meet those governors, I can discuss why they should directly speak to students, as well as your president and vice president. I think it'd be a good opportunity for students to have that platform to speak to themselves, to speak for themselves, and I've having spoken to previous vice presidents, I think that they've told me that it's something that could be feasible, definitely.
Okay. The fortnightly videos that you talk about this year hasn't worked.
I understand.
They've had, I think, 4 videos over the course of the year, so really fortnightly isn't something that's happened.
No.
How are you going to promise that you'll fulfil that?
Definitely. I think one of the reasons it may have gone wrong this year is because only the president and the vice president, who are naturally quite busy people, have been taking on those videos. I mentioned there in my manifesto that I want all executive officers to take on these, to be doing these videos. So essentially, if we have, or hopefully we have at least 6 or 7 people on our union next year, if we're doing it fortnightly, they could do it together or they could do it each, and I think that would relieve some of the burden to do these videos from the VPA and the president, and therefore they get pushed out more regularly.
So you've talked about, you'd raised concerns to the governors over the confidentiality agreement to be signed by the HSU president of VPA.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what the confidentiality agreement is?
Well, naturally, as a governor, confidentiality is expected of you. You are in possession of documents that non-governors are not. But recently, I believe there has been something called a sort of like an official confidentiality agreement since the partnership talks have begun a year or so ago, and that is sort of no longer just naturally expected of you, but now you are under a legal sort of obligation to not tell anyone about things that you're exposed to. The reason why I want to raise concerns about confidentiality agreements is because, as an academic representative, if someone wants to talk to me about further study, perhaps even further study here at the college, some of the likelihood of it, and if I know and cannot tell the students that, well, Heathrow are planning to offer MAs, Heathrow are not planning to offer MAs next year, they will offer the discounts for Roehampton, or you can continue your studies at Roehampton, all these different things that I will know but really not be able to talk to
There isn't actually a confidentiality agreement.
in that.
There was for St Mary's,
There was, okay.
which expired, it was an MBA that expired in April.
I see.
There isn't actually one for Roehampton.
Okay.
So, do you not think that's something that you should, as someone that wants to be vice principal academic, have known, researched, looked at before you put it in your manifesto?
Well, I did actually reach out to, I spoke to the general manager of the HSU, and I spoke to someone else, not vice president or president, but another executive member, and also Nadeem I spoke to, and he told me that the same, what I was under the, from what I got from speaking to them, was that it was business as usual, confidentiality was still expected from you, but perhaps I should have.
But there's no
official.
specific agreement. It's the kind of normal confidentiality that governors have, but there is no agreement whatsoever.
There is, okay. So, I mean, that would, I mean, I guess in that case, then that's a problem solved, I suppose. It's good that there's no confidentiality agreement, and in that case, then I will advise people on postgraduate studies to the best of my ability.
Okay. So, in your academic representation section, you've talked about how you'd increase your ability to students to drop in within the first to 6 weeks of term.
Yeah, first
when
4 to 6.
when demand for academic representation is usually higher.
Mm-hmm.
How have you experienced that? How do you know, and how have you experienced the academic representation is needed higher?
Well, that piece of advice came from speaking to this year's academic affairs officer. There are, of course, other areas such as exams, and also naturally when sort of January when a lot of assignments are due in. But from what I got from speaking to the academic affairs officer was that because there are a lot of new master's students who may not be up to grips with the plagiarism and referencing regulations at the college, and also undergraduate students who haven't written an essay for the best part of 4 or 5 months, if they are experiencing any problems, which is likely, it's probably likely to occur when they haven't written an essay in a while, if that makes sense. And just if any MA students wanted advice on if they wanted to raise concerns about their seminar system, the library, and lectures, if they had any problems, naturally these are questions you'll have earlier on in your degree, and so I want to make sure I'm there for people in the first 6 weeks.
Okay. You also speak about lending books, for people with specific needs.
Yes.
Who have you spoken to about whether that's viable? Have you checked whether you're allowed to kind of give that confidential information to the library staff?
No,
Some of which are students as well.
I understand, yeah.
So, how far have you really looked into it? What have you done to make sure this is a promise you can actually commit to?
Well, it's something I don't have control over. It's something I want to raise as in library committee meetings. I think one of the good things that was done this year is that the academic affairs officer was able to raise the lending, the amount of books that were available to undergraduates from, I believe, 8 to 10 for third years. I think it's just a matter of not giving people with specific needs, not sort of saying their names and why exactly they want them. I just think that naturally at Heathrow we do have a diverse community, and I think if we can be conscious of that when in library committee meetings, then I think it's something that could that is feasible.
Checked whether the information, because it is confidential information.
Of course.
Have you checked whether that is actually able to be shared? Because if not, then can't really work.
Well,
it should be like a main point that you followed up on, seeing as you do seem quite passionate about it.
Which piece of information would that be?
That they've got.
That they've got special needs.
Yeah.
Oh, I understand. Okay. Well, I wouldn't know exactly who the individuals were, but if there are students next year, for instance, coming on a master's degree program, then I suppose they, even though I wouldn't know who they were, at least at some level, say the head of the library could know who they were. The head of the head of the library isn't a student. I think it would just be a matter of sharing information with them, and then it would sort of reaching out in that way. I would not have to know who they were, so long as the head of the library does. I think that's something that could be implemented.
Okay. You also talk about Erasmus representatives.
Yes.
There isn't actually Erasmus this year. There is no Erasmus here. That's decided. It was decided a while ago. You've also mentioned Erasmus to do with focusing and building successful ties.
Yeah.
So as a part of your manifesto, do you not think that's also something you should have looked into before making promises about something that now doesn't exist?
Yes. Well, again, I did actually look into it. I was informed, by a senior member of staff, that we were going to have very few Erasmus students coming in on third year. Yeah, you're right, perhaps I could have double-checked there. But because it came from not a student but a senior member of staff, I sort of took it as being, as perhaps, I put a lot of trust into what they said, and yeah, that's why I put it in. Had I checked again, perhaps I could have realised that wasn't going to happen.
Yeah. So now on to student welfare and equality.
Yes.
You seem quite passionate
Indeed.
about it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's equality forums that happen very regularly. Every student is invited. Have you attended any of these?
I haven't attended any of these. What I have attended are the TOPSY events for welfare. I attended a talk on mindfulness that happened recently. I've attended the art and I believe the art and health workshops that have been going on recently, and I was active during Mental Health Awareness Week. So, though I haven't been to these talks, unfortunately, I have to some extent been engaged with welfare in the college and the union.
Okay. It does surprise me that you've not attended, seeing as
Yeah.
they're very well publicised, and you seem to have a lot of good ideas that you want to put forward. Is there any reason that you've not already tried to implement any of them?
Yes.
Or
attend.
So yeah,
these
attend them
meetings.
in, because you can bring up things like
this
the
in-
maintenance grants and
Yeah. At these equality
yeah.
forums. Yes. There are two reasons perhaps I haven't attended these. They're not as well publicised, I personally think, as they could be. And secondly, I wasn't aware that you could raise these quite important matters at these kind of meetings. I thought these were things that the governors could raise, and I suppose you're right in saying that if I raise it to a governor, then a governor could take it higher. Then I certainly, if they should continue these equality forums, then I will certainly try to get 2 more of them, if not all of them, having displayed my eagerness to uphold welfare and equality.
So you talk about scrapping of the maintenance grants and how you want to make sure that students of lower income backgrounds are strongly represented on financial boards.
Yeah.
Which financial boards is it that you are intending to do this with?
I don't know the names of these financial boards, but I have spoken to the Vice President, and he has told me that, well, the term that he used with me was financial boards. As a VPA, I don't have control over the college's welfare. The college's bursary and scholarship packages. But one thing I can say is that I can definitely talk to it if I'm told that the packages will be revised. I can at least say, well, look, there are some students who feel that these are not entirely fair. At the start of our degrees, we were promised that we would get X, Y, and Z amount of bursary or packages. This does feel like a breach of the college's promises to students, and so that's something I would want to at least push when speaking to the individuals who actually are in control of these packages, the financial packages.
Do you know who that would be? Who would you would speak to?
I assume the finance office, the head of the finance office. I can't give you a name, but it would certainly be raised. That's something I can promise.
Okay, so you've not already spoken to anyone about it?
I've spoken to, again, one senior member of staff who isn't in direct control of this.
Who was the member of staff?
It was Nadeem again.
Okay.
Nadeem told me that it's something that you, as a governor, naturally you have the power to raise concerns over it, but you don't have direct control over it.
Mm-hmm.
I would be willing to push for these to be safeguarded, though, for those students who might feel affected from low income backgrounds, such as myself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you not think this is an issue that you should have raised a bit sooner, as it is towards the end of this year now? It could have been brought up at UGSSLC. You could have pushed it somewhere, and
Okay.
it's something that you obviously feel strongly about,
Yeah.
and rightly so. It concerns me that this is out of the blue at UGSSLC. This is something that may have had a lot of backing from programme reps.
I understand. Yeah.
Why has it not been? It is a bit late, and by the time that if you got elected,
Yes.
you were in office.
Okay.
There's not much time to do anything before the next year.
I understand. Perhaps to answer your first point, why I didn't bring this up in those SSL meetings, were perhaps because I focused on the academic representation of students in that meeting, such as the seminars and the problems with tutorials, and I wasn't entirely sure if a meeting that was generally about academic affairs, if it would be relevant, if bringing something up like this would be relevant, and I wasn't also sure if the relevant member of staff would be there, the individual who would be in control of this. Generally, at those meetings, we have the head of undergraduate studies. We have the head of student services, and those individuals who are good at solving academic problems. Whether they might have a say in financial issues is another thing. But I certainly agree that program reps would have given this a lot of backing. I should hope that at least next year there is something I can do about it, and I would get in as soon as in the case I am elected, I would try to bring this up as early as I possibly can, and hopefully it can get through. It can get pushed through. These bursary and packages that are offered by the college are very important, and I think it would be a shame if the college said it was too late and there was nothing that could be done about it, because as I said earlier, we were promised a lot of these, and for the college to go back and say, well, changes have happened in higher education funding would for me be a shame, and particularly for those who have relied on some of these packages.
So you've also talked about you'd improve the awareness of issues relating to gender and race within the UK, which is rarely touched upon at an official level by either the union or college.
Yes.
This is again, especially in the last Equality Forum, gender was discussed in great detail, things that the college could do, could put on, again with the union. It seems to me that you don't really know what the meetings are for, especially with UGSSLC.
Yeah.
Like, if you've got a problem, you bring it up.
Okay.
Equality Forum, it's quite obviously about equality issues. How do you expect us to trust you when you're not sure who you'd take something to, what meeting it would go to?
Okay, yeah. I understand, yes. Well, I'd certainly say that something that is there is a great deal of passion for these issues. I certainly could have done more within this year to raise them. What was your question that I haven't attended enough, I'm not aware of?
Well, yeah, it seems that you don't really know what the meeting's for, what goes where.
Yeah.
How do you expect us to trust you if you don't seem to have put in the research before?
Okay. Yes. Well, I certainly have spoken to senior members of staff about this. There are a lot of people involved. My manifesto is quite broad, and there are a lot of people involved in these, and to follow up on every single policy would have, I mean, it's possible, but it's difficult.
Yeah, but you could have even tried to speak to the relevant member of staff.
Okay.
Even just sent an email, and then you could say, this is actually being looked at now.
Okay.
It seems that what you've done is thought of something, wrote it down, and not really looked into it. From my perspective, that is.
Well, one of the things I will say is that what could have been done this year is that there were talks, because on my manifesto I talk about organising talks for people to come in and raise awareness on gender and race. That's something that I want to do next year. I can't
Which has also been brought through the Equality Forum and has been said that they will do it.
They will do it, okay. And on race, because I do think I still have a point when I talk about awareness of race rarely being that there haven't been enough events to raise awareness.
And I agree, but you don't seem to realise that goes through Equality Forum. You could have gone and took that up. Things can go through UGSLC. You talk to the Human Resources Manager if you have an issue with equality.
Yes.
You talk to the Director of Finance if it's a financial issue.
Yes. I understand. With the pressures that the union will face next year, it's important that I think voters know that there is someone there who will actually, if they haven't directly now taken responsibility for it, then they will at least promise to take responsibility for it when they are elected. I think it's useful for voters to know that I do care about these issues, and I didn't want to overlook welfare and equality given the recent restructuring of the union with the loss of the welfare and the female welfare officer and the LGBTQ. I think one of the things that the HM raised was the people were worried that, I think someone said that who will I go to if I have a welfare issue, what if I want to raise something, what if I want to talk to a union member who has who can work with me to raise awareness for equality. I want to make people aware that I will be there for them in this capacity, and if the points are not entirely researched, then then forgive me for that. But there is definitely a genuine passion for these areas, and in the case I am elected, I will certainly do much more than I have this year to ensure that these promises are delivered.
Okay. Yeah. Your last section is student experience, where you talk about how you would organise an overnightly termly trip to a city students would like to visit at a subsidised cost.
Mm-hmm.
What's your budget for this? How much would it cost? Where would you get the money from?
Yeah, I would. So it would be. I would probably use the Topsy budget. I think this is because it comes under student experience. It wouldn't be a large-scale event. It would be. I mean, if there are several hundred people at Heathrow, and to organise an overnight event for everyone, I just think wouldn't be a very wise thing economically. One of the things I do want to push, however, is for at least we have to look at this realistically. Is for at least a dozen people, perhaps 10, 12, because if you look at the student experience events this year, though there's been a lot of effort put into them, they haven't always been fully attended, and so I don't want to spend money on 50 places and only 15 or 12 people show up. So the sort of range of people I'm looking at the moment, at least from speaking to people who have expressed an interest in this, is that it would be around 15, 20 people, and this would mainly be directed at undergraduates. Again, figure-wise, that is something I will need to follow up on, but I have spoken to the general manager of the union, and he has said that it's something that is, firstly, I have complete control over, and secondly, the sound of it does sound economically feasible. And it would be nice to, I think, in what is the third year's final year, to do something that an event that hasn't put on before. I can't recall an overnight trip being organised by the union, so I think that'd be nice to do.
Yeah. You've also said you'll engage students in the event planning process.
Yeah.
How?
Absolutely. Well, I want to do this. Firstly, I want to do this earlier from summer. So I think the main events next year will be Hayfest. There'll be and then there's, of course, traditionally we've always had the big Halloween, Christmas, and there's been some great events in January towards the end of term and then summer. These are ones I would love students to have a say in. The venue. I think there's been a few events this year that have really been excellent, but budget-wise, students haven't been able to afford, say, drinks and so on. And I think if I get firstly a good idea of the venues people would like, and also the venues.
How would
yes,
you get that?
Yeah, absolutely. That would be through taking what's happened this year and through a survey, for instance. We could also do online polls through Facebook, and also I will make it clear. I will send an email out to students saying that they can send me suggestions, and also I will by term time I will organise an event, a drop-in session for people to come and talk to me, suggest events, and I will take everyone's views into account when planning the events, because it's with less undergraduates next year, it will be vital to put on what things those fewer undergraduates want, and so to ensure that Heathrow students are mainly attending, and not to always have to rely on intercollegiate or Fordham students. As great as they have been for our events, I want to maintain a Heathrow student experience to our events. I think would be nice.
Okay. Sure. A couple of questions from students who asked us to ask. Have you ever been in a committee or meeting in which you've disagreed with a decision that was made, and what did you do to voice your disagreement?
Disagreed. I think they're not necessarily disagreed, but I have walked away from meetings feeling as though more could have been done. In particular, I think the problem with seminars, which I only recently got solved in our course, I did raise this at the very beginning, at the very first meeting, and it really only, even though I followed up with it on with my module convener and the senior staff members at that meeting, it didn't really go anywhere. I then followed back up on it with my module convener, who again didn't really do anything about it. And by the third meeting, when I made it clear in front the principal was present as well, I made it clear that, look, when it's been 3 coursework assignments, we've A, not been offered tutorials yet, and B, our seminar took place in Reading Week. This is just not acceptable. We've had students complaining about it. That seems to have been solved now. I haven't necessarily, because I think at Heathrow, staff and students do generally, there is a willingness to solve these problems. I certainly don't think there's ever been a disagreement in which I thought, there's ever been something that reached in a meeting that I thought was just unacceptable, but that there has been things that I think could have been solved sooner, and I have followed up in those cases.
Okay. Yep. So, thank you very much.
Absolutely, thank you for your time. Great.